for the semi-finals. The motion of this House is as stated that this House believes that marriage is an outdated institution. For those of you who know me well enough, this debate is very pinnacle for me. My decision will solely be based on this debate. All jokes aside, today we have two great teams who will be debating on this motion. Put your hands together for the governing team, the Futurists, who is led by the Prime Minister, Mr. Wilbert, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Charles, and the Whip Speaker, Ms. Nafisa. And speaking on behalf of the opposition team, all single girls welcome. Speaking on behalf, the opposition leader will be Mr. Dinesh. The deputy opposition leader will be Mr. Vincent. And the whip speaker will be Mr. Benedict Leong. Without further ado, let us move on with our debate for today. May I invite the Prime Minister to make his opening statement for the motion that states that this House believes that marriage is an outdated institution. Mr. Wilbert.
So marriage is an outdated institution. So first let us define what marriage is. Since we were born when we were still a child, this idea has been planted into our brain. Our parents keep on telling us that when we grow up, we need to find someone that we love and to spend the rest of our life with it. But why I state today is that marriage is outdated. Why? So first, I'm Wilbert. I'm going to tell about the legal issues, and Charles will tell about the economic issues, and Nafisa will tell about the political issues. But bear in your mind that today we are not going to talk about religion in here. Okay? So why we stated that marriage is an outdated issue? First is the rate of divorce. So the rate of divorce has been stated by Huffington Post is that China, 50% of the young generation, they have divorced right now. 53% Luxembourg, Czech Republic, they have divorced. And Australia, 45% have been divorced so far.
On that point,
Yeah.
is it fair to discriminate marriage just because some marriages has failed?
Okay.
Here.
Let's go to the second one. Why? Why marriage is outdated? Because marriage can destroy the child's future. Let's say this as an example. I've read a book written by Desmond Tutu, stated that when he was still a child, he has a very bright future. But then both of his parents has an agreement, and then after that he got into prison because he could not reject. And the third is that in the past, marriage complete a person as a whole. But nowadays, that is no longer an issue. Now women have the same equality with men. They both can have the same job. They both can be the CEO, manager, owner of a company, the leader of an organization. And that stated that they both can bear their dream. If they combine together, some of them will lose their dream, taking care of the child, taking care of the family. And with that stated, marriage can no longer help them to achieve what they want in life to the greatest level, the happiness. And next we go to the next one is that you don't need a marriage to show your love. Marriage is simply just an institution.
Yes.
So if you really like someone, you don't need to marry them. Show your love, prove them that you really love them, and with that all in mind, reject. With that all in mind, marriage doesn't really help anything. It's just a form of formality. Yes. And the next one that I want to state is that I think this is rational for all of us. Love is just a flow of feeling within us. So this flow of feeling within us is that, for example, this person loves someone, but to bear for the same 20 years, it won't happen because people change.
The third time.
Okay.
So if marriage is an outdated institution, what is the updated institution?
Exactly.
So updated institution is not being published yet, but what can really be stated here is that because people still believe in marriage is an institution. So with that in mind, most of the people still believe this still exists, but actually it does not, no longer can serve us well. Love can change because people change for the 20 years. So for example, this person have the same dream. This is the person that is going to support this person's dream, and because of that, the two of them marry. But to keep this going for the 20 years, people do change. And because of that, marriage can destroy a family. Marriage can destroy the bonding of a family.
Point of information.
Reject. So let's go to the next one, which is marriage can really complete you as a whole. Why we stated that this is wrong? Because just like what we stated before, you don't need to marry someone to improve your bonding, showing care, showing your love, and with that you can show your love to everyone. Most of the time, because you marry someone, you have the restriction to meet someone, to talk to someone, to communicate with someone, and with that, marriage really destroys our human life. Marriage is really outdated. And now we go to the next, which is people in the past, why they say that marriage is really useful. The marriage institution is really useful because in the past people marry at a very young age and they don't live very long. As what is being stated by the New York Times is that in the past 1452, that stated is that people just live at that time for 20 till 40 years old. So because of that short range of time, marriage really helped them. They don't really change that far. But now, we marry someone until 80 years old, 90 years old. And people do change within that time. So because of that, marriage can no longer serve for people because we live longer than what people live in the past. And that is what I stated. I'm going to conclude everything is that the rate of divorce is getting higher and higher this day because marriage can no longer serve people well. And then love is something that flows within you. So you don't need a marriage to marry someone. It is all about your love, your showing care of love, and that is all that you need. And next is that you don't really need marriage because marriage can destroy the future generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister Wilbert. We now call upon the opposition leader, Mr. Dinesh Jayabalan, to present his statement.
I asked for light, God gave me the sun. I asked for water, God gave me rain. I asked for happiness, and God gave me her. Beautiful, isn't it? Two cultures coming together, two different heartbeats trying to find the same beat in the same house. Two different individuals from two different walks of life coming together, taking a vow to live forever. For the Muslims, you have the Akad Nikah. For the Christians, you have the beautiful vow. And for the Indians, you walk and rotate around the fire to prove your vow. Ladies and gentlemen, before side opposition looks into side government's case inside out and prove how they have failed to endure the cracks in their own arguments, let us first start with the rebuttals that I would like to give to the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister has clearly stated why he hates marriage. We understand, Prime Minister, we are the single ones here, it's perfectly fine. So ladies and gentlemen, the first thing that he said, right, that he gave an example about how the child changed after the marriage and how the child had a bad experience about the marriage. Members of the floor, if the marriage did not happen, the child would not have existed. And if the child did not exist, that philosophy will not be standing here today.
Yeah.
That's the first rebuttal. Now the second, I'll take the pretty one.
Oh shit.
Here's my question. Why would the child not exist? Sex does not require marriage.
Thank you so much. Now ladies and gentlemen, what the child in his example was talking about marriage. If the child's parents were not married, how will the child know about marriage? That's what I meant. Now, the second argument, there's a clear problem inside government today. Slippery slope. Just because marriage has some problem, they have assumed and concluded that marriage is causing problem. Ladies and gentlemen, a knife can kill you. Does that mean I can tell you that the knife should not be used at all? That's what the government team is telling today. Because of the small problems that happens in marriages, it happens everywhere. It's a beautiful learning experience. You're supposed to endure the cracks in your relationship and learn in the marriage, ladies and gentlemen. And that's how beautiful relationships are. Which side government did not side, and that was very disappointing for us. Now, the next rebuttal, the next level of rebuttal is also getting very interesting. When he said, right, you don't need two people to be married to show love. We are not saying you need marriage to show love. We are giving the two individuals a choice of marriage. The same two individuals might be killing each other even without marriage. The same problem. I don't know what the government team is trying to prove today. They're saying there's two individuals, decline ma'am. There's two individuals, and because they're having problem and they're going through issues. But ladies and gentlemen, let's accept facts. There are two sides of the coin. There's day and night. The problem exists, but we cannot take the problem and make it as a big issue and ban marriage altogether, which is what side government is trying to do today. Now, an interesting question that I wanted to ask, but I was rejected over and over and over again was, what is side government trying to tell with the word outdated institution? Apparently, the updated institution is not out yet, so we can't rebut them on that. So now, what is side opposition doing today? Ladies and gentlemen, we are very for marriage because we believe that when you tie the knot and take the vow, you are not only promising yourself with them, but you are becoming one unit. And when you become that one unit, it's going to give you so much of learning experience. It's going to make you a better person, and it's going to take you to a newer heights. To that is what side opposition is banking. Yes.
You don't need to become one unit to learn new experience. You can do a lot of
Ladies
way.
and gentlemen, okay, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if we continue with this, we are going to be debating on two parallels. What side government is trying to do very easily is they're saying, you don't need marriage, you don't need marriage, you don't need marriage. And we are going to be saying, we are not telling you that you need marriage. We are giving you a choice to get married. The choice exists. Decline, sir. Now, before we further go, allow me to now introduce my argument. Side opposition today, we believe a marriage as a holy process, and we believe there's a reason why marriage existed from those days until now. If it was an outdated institution, you won't have Indian mothers today telling their sons to get married. Just for your reference. Yes?
The thing that you're saying is that it is a choice, and then you're saying that the Indian woman tells her son to get married, but she forces her daughter to get married when she reaches a certain
Okay, ladies and
age.
gentlemen, here's the problem again. Once again, like what I said, if marriage was an outdated institution, we won't be having marriage in the society today. So we are not saying the problem about choices. We are telling you that marriage is not an outdated institution, ladies and gentlemen. If it was outdated, it will be not existing in today's society. The government team here is trying to be smart and trying to mingle around the words that we are trying to say. But ladies and gentlemen, be awake and be with side opposition today. Now, our first argument, like what I said, is the unit of family. Now, what marriage does is the fact that it brings two families together. And this is harmony. And this is what side opposition we are still single, but we are banking on marriage. Alright? So ladies and gentlemen, why is marriage not an outdated institution? When you see people getting married, you're seeing two types of different cultures coming together. And we are not trying to tell you that marriage is something that is perfect. Because everything in the world has problems. We admit that there are issues. But when you face those issues, you can't run away from them as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, being human, you have a lot of heart diseases. You have so many diseases in the world. Does that mean you stop existing? Does it mean that you stop living your life the way how you want to live? It's the same thing with marriage, ladies and gentlemen. What side opposition today? Our stand is simple. We believe that marriage is not an outdated institution for three main reasons. Number one, it brings people together. Number two, it gives you a chance to learn from one another. And number three, marriage is a unit that has been existing from day one because of the traditional norms and culture that it produces, and we will stick by it. Now, before I end the case, You will hear side government coming over and over and over again, trying to tell you, you see, you can do this without marriage, you can do this without marriage. But that is not what side government is supposed to do. Their burden of proof today is to prove to the House how is marriage an outdated institution. It's not their part to tell us the problem that exists within marriage. We know that. As humans, everything, we have problems.
Okay.
But side government, bench government today has to come up and prove to us and challenge us with our eyes and tell us how marriage is outdated. With that, I'm very proud to oppose.
Thank you, Mr. Opposition Leader. We now hear the second speech from the Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Charles.
Thank you, everyone. So, my name is Charles, and I represent the proposition team to support this notion on marriage is an outdated institution. First, I'll rebut the first speaker of the opposition team. The first speaker, basically what I got, the arguments that I received from the opposition team is all about how marriage can bring people together, how marriage how we can learn from each other for marriage. All of that, all you can learn out without marriage. And I really say that because that's their arguments. That's the only arguments that they came at. They cannot make any other arguments to rebut our motion that marriage is an outdated institution. Okay, so, and then we, as the first speaker, Wilbert, has clearly stated our stand, which we don't want to bring religion into this debate. And the opposition speaker keep on using religion again and again. So it's not a valid argument. Okay, so okay.
On that point,
Yes.
by dismissing our argument, you're appealing to the stone. Please clarify.
Can you repeat?
By dismissing our argument on grounds of religion, you're appealing to the stone. Please clarify.
Appealing to the stone, I don't get it.
It's all right.
Okay. Okay, so also the opposition speaker clearly contradict themselves. The first time they say marriage is a choice, it is up to us to actually choose whether to marry or not. But the opposition speaker also said that their mother forced them to marry. So is it a yes?
Sir, stop deviating and explain to us how is marriage an outdated institution rather than focusing marriage as an external factor.
I'll come to that later. All right, so clearly they have contradicted their own statement. So let me define why marriage is an outdated institution. Marriage is an outdated institution because it is being brought by society from 5,000 years ago. Marriage didn't exist before that time, and we as a human could survive. This is a proof that marriage is no longer necessary. Marriage is only a formal institution that brings couple together, and they will live in the entire life together. This is already old thinking by the society that we need to remove. Why removing this will bring benefits to us, you ask? Then, because we are removing marriage as an institution, marriage is no longer a necessity. So people can actually choose whether or not they will marry or not.
On that point,
Yes?
clear contradiction. Giving the choice is what team opposition is saying. Marriage is not an outdated institution because we have a choice. Please
No,
clarify.
because the marriage is no longer an institution, then there's no social barrier, social pressure for you to actually choose for the
Point of information.
no please, for the society to force you to choose. Okay, so there is because of this marriage institution, society are pressuring us to actually get married. If you are not married, then you are not normal. You are being it's a taboo for you not to be married with one another. And also, as we will say, 40 to 60% of marriage end in divorce. This proves that marriage is not working, and this also
On that
proves
point.
no, please. This also proves that 40 to 50%, 60% marriage are unhappy, and there are more to that. How about the rest? Are they happy? No, they are not happy. This also proves that they are actually trapped inside of this terms called marriage because they believe that because they believe that divorce is a taboo, and they are forced to live like unhappily with the person who they don't even love.
Point of information.
Is that really no please? Is that really what marriage wants? What the society wants from a marriage?
On that
Clearly, it's not. No, please. Yeah, and again, the rebutting to the points that the speakers of our opposition team have made, that the point of marriage is about creating a family. We can create family with all people without this marriage institution. We can create a family with Toastmasters. We are all family, and we can share. We can learn from each other. This is clearly nullifying all the arguments that they have made, and also. Still. And now I'll go to my arguments. First is, as I stated, marriage is outdated. Nowadays, people can actually live without being married to each other. Why do we marry in the first place? Because long time ago, we need a family to actually live together. We need a role of a father who will find money, take care of their family. We need a role of a mother who is caring and things like that. But now we don't need it anymore. We are now living in a society where women can live independently, economically independently, and also men can also live independently. It's no longer a notion that we have to be married. And also, to be together doesn't mean it needs to be married. We need to be married. We can be married with one another without this formal bond called marriage. We can live in the same family. There's no longer society bond. There is this society thing called marriage. With that, I rest my case. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Charles. We now listen to the opposition side with their rebuttal. Mr. Vincent.
Mr. Chairperson, I love how team government say so much but mean so little.
Yeah.
Just like how I write my 5,000 word essays. Now, to the Mr. Prime Minister, first he says that high divorce rate is a problem. Yes, high divorce rate is a problem, but it is a symptom of a sickness. And that sickness is selfishness and self-entitlement. To blame the institution of marriage is like saying, hey, you are coughing blood, but the cause of it is your 4th stage lung cancer. Let's blame KFC for your obesity. Completely irrelevant, completely pointless.
Yeah.
Now, on the point that the Mr. Deputy Prime Minister made, he says, come on man, are you listening to my leader of opposition? Like, heck, he even gave you a platform for you to argue on, and yet you decide not to use it. Remember, your job is to prove why the institution of marriage is outdated. Do you want us to spoon feed you on that? Come on, seriously, instead of spending time rambling about things that does not matter, focus on proving your job. Do your job, come on, don't just talk about things, alright? And to quote you, Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, you say the following: you are not married, you are not normal. I find that absolutely preposterous, and that's for that reason. You see, the problem with that is that it's with people like you, not the institution, that we have such stereotypes in our society. And please, come on, go back and reflect on your life decisions before you say such things in public.
Point of information.
Sit down. Now, let me talk about my points. Now, why is the institution of marriage not outdated? First, the team government, let me just give you a point to talk about. Team government may want to say about the individual rights. You know, we as individuals have rights to choose to be in marriage or what, and that being in marriage binds us, limits our rights. Alright, fine, we want to talk about rights. But what about the rights of the child to have a strong and stable family institution? Isn't that something that marriage gives us? And isn't that something that every child should have the right to? Yes, madam.
Yeah, what you're saying is the family institution is necessary. We're not talking about family, we're talking about marriage. We're talking about the institution, legal binding institution of marriage.
Yes.
Why is that necessary?
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, if this did actually thank you very much, because you are going to bring into my example that I'm going to bring up. Now, first we have to acknowledge that a person's conduct depends on their family upbringing. And that if you have a stable family, chances are you would be a semi-decent people, like everyone in the crowd here. Now, sit down. Now, if you were to say that just because you don't have marriage, you can still have family, fine. But is that family stable? Is that family going to last and go the distance? Answer is, I doubt so. And then there's a reason for that. Now, so we have to ask ourselves, what makes a stable family? Three things actually. Now, let me just go through the thoughts. First, the answer is that an institution of marriage makes a stable family. Why? Because it keeps people together to foster an environment whereby their children would be able to learn from their parents and become functional members of our society. And that's something that we would want to have. Now, moving on to my second point is that marriage actually makes an individual better. Now, you guys might find that confusing, but let me explain to you why. Because first, all of us believe that nobody is meant to be a perfect match or to find the perfect partner. Fair. But when through the institution of marriage, we were forced to make a decision. When we as a couple face a problem, people who are self-entitled and are selfish would decide to go for a divorce. Why? Because it is an easy way out. You got a problem, just say divorce, say no more. You know, forget about it. But is that the right thing to do? But that's what marriage does. Marriage it also offers a way for us to rethink and reevaluate again. If you want to save the marriage, you would actually think about the problem and actually try to solve it. You would ask questions like, am I the problem? What is the problem? How to solve it? And this thought process itself is enough to make us a better person, because let's be honest, nobody taught us how to be a better person at the very early stage of our lives, which is why we respect elderly people, because they have gone through all of that experiences and they can tell us what is right and what is wrong, and that's what marriage does to you. It makes you a better person. Now, also, another thing is that when we say divorce, another very interesting fact is that divorced people who remarry have a high chance to be divorced again. In fact, statistics by the National Registration Department, NRD, says that 50% of people who were divorced, then remarry, will divorce again. And this is a high attrition rate, ladies and gentlemen. But do you want to know why? The reason is that people who divorced in the first place never had the opportunity to reflect on themselves what went wrong in their first marriage and decided that divorce is just an easy way out to solve the problem. So ladies and gentlemen, we say that marriage is not outdated. It is something that we need to keep ourselves in check, to make sure that our society will continue to prosper and that the people, the next generation you meet would not be selfish and arrogant people simply because they do not have the proper upbringing that a family institution brought upon by marriage can be able to provide. So just to re-summarize my point, I say that there are two main reasons why marriage is not an outdated institution. First is that we have to think about the rights of the child to have a stable family, and second, marriage makes us better human beings. And with that, I rest my case. Thank you very much.